Hey guys, here are my lenses, and today I want to share with you why I chose to shoot with these lenses over manual lenses. Let me preface this by sharing my background. Back in 2018, my wife bought a mirrorless camera. She got the camera on sale with the intention of using it for her business trip and when we travel. I was able to use it once in Korea in full auto mode, kind of how you would use a phone camera. We didn't really use it other than in trips since we were not into photography. In the middle of 2019, we traveled to Osaka and I decided to explore the camera. During this trip, I would fiddle with the settings whenever we had downtime. I eventually learned how to use other modes, discovered raw files, and started to understand the exposure triangle. I even found myself not shooting in full auto anymore. In fact, I was shooting manual the whole trip. Needless to say, a lot of my shots ended up not being properly exposed. Aside from the happy memories, that trip was also the start of my photography journey. I really enjoyed taking photos, and the editing process was extremely fun. I fell in love particularly with candid photography. I loved its dynamic nature, and it was something that I could practice without needing to travel. Fast forward to today, I still do street photography whenever I can on the streets of Makati. So that's my photography background. I wanted to share that because I recognize that we might be doing photography in different contexts, approach, and purpose. While I'm happy to recommend what I use, please note that my thoughts are based on my own experience. I shot with a manual lens for a couple of months. Manual lenses may not have autofocus, but they are very cheap and produce a certain character. Images from these lenses can have a very distinct characteristic, like swirly bokeh balls. But my manual lens didn't have that. So really, the only advantage was its price. So why didn't I continue with the manual-only route? First, it was challenging not having autofocus. I know for a lot of people, it's easy to use manual focus. I'm sure that if I stuck to it, it would have gotten easier for me too. But at that time, it felt more like an unnecessary limitation. After shooting in manual mode, I went back to aperture priority and focused on learning composition. In the same way, after learning to use manual focus, I felt the need to go back to autofocus and concentrate on learning composition. It's not that learning composition and manual focusing are mutually exclusive. It's just that it might be easier to learn one if you're not encumbered by the other. These days, I still use manual focus for specific tasks, but by default, I stick to autofocus. This might be obvious, but let me say it anyway. You can use manual focus on an autofocus lens, but you cannot use autofocus on a manual lens. I know that there are adapters, but they are expensive. I agree that the experience of focusing by wire is not the same with the manual lens, but I'm just happy that there's an option. I use zone focusing with my Fujifilm 23mm, and so far so good. There's also a good reason for setting the camera to manual focus mode with native lenses because of back button focusing. Back button focus allows me to autofocus while staying on manual focus mode. With this, I am able to take advantage of the speed of autofocus and the precision of manual focus. For me, autofocus really shines when using it on fast-moving subjects, especially those that are moving away from or towards the camera. One of the three Fujifilm focusing modes is continuous autofocus, which allows the camera to track moving subjects. I use this when I'm taking photos of cats as they tend to move towards you when you crouch to take a photo. This is also my go-to mode when taking photos from a moving vehicle. In addition, continuous AF enables us to take advantage of the camera's automatic face and eye detection. I know that a lot of amazing photos taken by legendary photographers were shot with manual lenses, but I wonder if they would resist using modern autofocus lenses had this been available to them. Another reason why I chose these lenses over manual lenses is weather sealing. I love taking photos in the rain, and having that extra layer of protection gives me a bit more peace of mind. I cannot imagine manually focusing while holding my umbrella. There are camera rain covers and I could wear a coat, but that setup seems more complicated to me. The Fujifilm 50mm is weather sealed and has been my go-to for rainy day photography. With manual lens, I also found myself chimping more. I just had to check if I nailed the focus. There was focus peaking on my camera, but I still developed the habit of constantly reviewing the image right after I take the photo. You might not develop the same habit, but I can see why it can be easy to develop this pattern when you are shooting with a manual lens. The manual lens that I used produced a noticeable vignette and softness. One might say this is the character of the lens. This may or may not be a good thing depending on your preference, but I found myself correcting them in post. I prefer having neutral images and just adding the effects in post. I also love that the images produced with my lenses are of similar image quality that it's hard to tell which image is taken with which lens. This consistency means I can process the photos the same way in post without prior adjustments. Since these Fujinon lenses are made by Fujifilm, I believe that they are made in such a way that they are able to make the most of the camera bodies. Lastly, my camera is my family's camera. Not everyone is as passionate as I am. Most just want to take photos for fun and for the rare occasions that need documenting. Manual focus only lenses might make photography even more intimidating for them. Shooting with manual lenses can be a fun challenge. Collecting them can be a fun hobby in itself. It would also benefit you if you learn how to manually focus. So getting a manual lens is not a bad idea, and I might get one again in the future. It's just that for me, the option of having autofocus and manual focus at the same time provides greater value. If you only have the kit lens and want to try prime lenses, consider getting these native lenses over the manual ones. In my opinion, you'll improve faster if you can focus more on taking photos rather than fiddling with the camera. Tools are used to achieve a particular goal. In the end, it's possible to reach any photography goal using manual and autofocus lenses. For me, autofocus just makes reaching those goals faster.